Okay. Hi. So this is for the main event. We have some incredible names. It's a large panel because honestly, we asked a few people and we thought most of them would say no, and then it turned out that everyone said yes, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do a panel.
Because it's
five
you.
people.
Because it's you, Mada. That's why.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So I'm Mada. I'm one of the founders of Upside with Alex. Before Upside, I started a company called Branch in mobile attribution, and I was the CMO there for 10 years on and off. And I'm so excited to introduce this panel. So I'm going to try to introduce them. Camille told me I should try to introduce the speakers instead of letting them introduce themselves. So let's see if I can remember. So Idan is the CMO of Verkada. He used to be a founder himself and founded a couple of companies. So he comes to the CMO role from a very entrepreneurial background. Sheila just is at Figma, and she helped Figma go public, which was, I can't wait to hear about that experience. And I met Sheila when she was the CMO of Open Door, and you guys were a Branch customer at the time, and we did a few events. And then she was also an investor for a while, and then went back to CMO, and I've always been curious to ask about that, but maybe after. Okay, and then we have Scott, who is the CMO of Vanta. He comes for Brex. I apparently met him at Ethan's house, and I did not remember, and I felt incredibly embarrassed. But it was dark. There were candles, but it was very dark. So I would blame it on Ethan
so
and
memorable.
his candles. And then Meagen, the CMO of Samsara, and I met Meagen when she was a MongoDB, and I had just started going, Branch was going to B2B, and I remember going to the board and saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And NEA was our investor, and they're like, well, we have the best CMO, they're gonna teach you how to do B2B marketing. And Meagen became my advisor and taught me a lot of the things I know today. Oh my God, I'm like, I'm feeling very nervous right now. Katrina, which I also know from her time as Segment, and is now the CMO of New Relic. And we met, I think, at one of those Enrich groups a long time ago, which was actually the Branch office. And so anyway, an incredible panel. Let's start with basically maybe like an icebreaker. And the one that I think would be interesting is how have you had to adapt as a CMO and marketing leader? What's one skill you had to adapt as AI has kind of taken over everything? And let's start with you, Idan.
Can you start on the other side?
Yes, sure. Ladies first.
Go for it.
Wow, okay.
Super obvious. Hello. Okay. Yeah, super obvious. Gosh, I joined New Relic, I want to say, a little over a year ago. And so, AI has moved so quickly. So I was pretty early in my journey, and I was like, oh, I got to use AI for everything. So it started really simply just by, what am I going to use AI for? Should I just sign up for Jasper and use it as kind of a co-writing tool? So I started that simply, and I still use it today and love it. I think another skill, just being maybe a little bit more thoughtful about workflows. I've been really impressed with what the team is building. And for example, these days we use Gemini, everyone's creating gems, and the whole sales enablement and what reps can do by asking, right, literally a gem chat on what their talk track should be based on the accounts they're working has been like game changing for us on the enablement side. So getting a little bit more technical there too has been pretty cool.
Yeah, for myself, I figured I need to become an expert on a lot of new technology. I've always been a huge fan of what's your tech stack, how are you leveraging technology. And so just been on the last really 6 months, 9 months, trying to learn as much as I can. And so every morning for 45 minutes, I read 5 or 6 different newsletters. I love Neuron, Rundown AI. There's several of them. And I sit there and read, and then usually there's some interesting prompts, so I'll go try some of those prompts. Or there's new technology and case studies, and I'll then dispatch them to different people on my team, and I'll say, okay, hey, have you checked this out? Are you aware that you could use, like Gemini just launched a new MCP server. should we be looking at that instead of the one that we built ourselves? And so just different things like that. I'll send it to the team, and then usually they educate me on if we will use it and stuff like that. So yeah, just a lot of reading and trying things.
Yeah, I'd say the same. So I think as marketers, we've all always been prone to geek out on new tech. I certainly have been since the start of my career. I think it's one of the things that gives us a lot of leverage and productivity. This new AI era has just sort of accelerated that to another level, where the need to keep up with everything that's coming out has just gone higher and higher. And so I'd say I'm like a combination of playing with it, and then also I was just talking with Maya about Lovable. I will also just go to all these products and watch demos. So I spend a lot of time on YouTube and just be like, is this one for me? Or is this one for a developer or someone who's got more time than I do? And for instance, like Lovable, I was like, I think if I spent a weekend in this thing, it could get cool. But I don't really have a weekend to offer it at the moment, nor the idea. And so I'm like, that one's probably not for me yet. I was just playing with one the other night. Aqua. Has anybody tried Aqua yet? No, it's kind of like granola. Is anybody using granola? Granola just changed my world the other day, and so I think we're all like playing with these things, and so I'm definitely doing that, and thinking a lot about like the evolution of where we are today, where we're going to be in a year, and where we're going to be a few years from now, with the lens of kind of build versus buy. And so like about a year ago, as things were just exploding, I felt like I was like checking everything out, and everything we were doing all these pilots, and nothing was quite good enough. And now I feel like we're finally at this point where I'm like, ooh, I think we're ready to buy some new stuff. But I think about, is what's going to be next? Should I build it? Is this going to be flexible enough? Who's coming up behind it? So spending a lot of time kind of how to architect what the future might look like instead of just jump at the coolest new thing right now.
Hello. Yeah. I agree with everything that has been said, especially just the point around like better understanding what the future is going to look like. And I think one just takeaway about what's been happening over the past few years is that all of the playbooks that have existed are being rewritten. And so as someone who's been doing this for a while, usually experience is a strength. And I actually think now experience, if you just fall back on what you're used to doing, it's actually almost a negative because the playbooks are all changing. And so, like, for example, the SEO playbook, totally different now. Now it's all about generative engine optimization, and do you have enough visibility with LLMs, and are you using Profound or one of the competitors in that space, and how does your content set you up to show up in the LLM search results? And SEO traffic is shifting at an alarming rate. And so that playbook doesn't work anymore. And the social playbook is totally different. Now, there's been an explosion in influencer, and how do you spur the influencer market, and it's about YouTube, and how do you maximize the views and clippings, and it may not be about brand followers anymore, it's about something else. And so that playbook is different. And the creative playbook is different. It used to be about having a central brand idea, and how do you, over many months and years, keep building equity in that idea. And now it's like, well, if with AI you can create new creative in the matter of minutes and days, like why do you have to wait that long? And can you move faster? And people actually expect more, and the conversation is over in a matter of hours, and you need something new. And so that playbook is different. And so it's like all of the playbooks that have worked for us for so long are all changing. And so the experience actually has to be refreshed. And so how are you bringing that perspective onto your team so you can be at the cutting edge? And that's kind of, I think, what we're all trying to figure out.
I would love to talk about the pace of that change happening on the creative side once we get through it.
I mean, you can do it now. Just yeah.
I mean, because I'm blown. Like, it's sort of like I think about the White House news cycle and just how fast things are changing, and how we just forget it. Like, it's just in one ear and out the other. And I sort of think about the implications of that on like marketing campaigns. And I was just the other day, I was working with this great freelance creative, and he came up with like 50 different ideas, and I'm like, gosh, I like them all. And he's like, let's run them all. And I was like, well, we could. And then to your point about like the big ideas, like we used to like think about, oh, I just got to have repetition. I need to like make sure people remember. And if you look around the city, a company right here that I compete with, that I get to
We
Wow.
did notice that, and we
Stare
were
at,
like, oh, that's gonna be in front of
and so,
Scott.
like,
Okay, but
know-
it's not. It doesn't suck too much. I'm just saying.
And so, but they've got a different message on like every billboard around the city right now, and it's not the same. And I think it used to be that we would do the same thing over and over again, and so some of those are good, actually not bad, and some are not so good. And so there's this like thing: if it's not so good, does that hurt you? Is it good to just be fresh? I think, we're all addicted to the feed constantly changing. Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy
And
time.
it's like, would you spend a lot of money on creative anymore if it's only going to last for a day? You used to spend $1 million on a commercial,
it's
but
so easy. It's
why
all
do
free.
that now?
But you can build it with AI, so you don't have to
Yeah,
spend
exactly.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, Idan.
Wow. I think everything that they said is correct. I think what I'm, first of all, for the, I don't know what titles are in the crowd, but if you're a CMO, and especially these people right here, we have a large team, massive team. So the amount of time we have is so small, and we're also somewhat disconnected from the IC level. There's layers beneath us, and so we're working a lot of overtime to try and understand the IC level so we can actually give direction. And so, Scott kind of mentioned it, like, I think I'm actually, like, there's this paranoia that I'm no longer relevant. And so I'm always trying to jump into any sort of tool or any sort of workflow to run a campaign. Maybe it's once or twice a quarter to force myself into it so that I can guide my people and provide at least the intuition that I've earned over time with the tools that they actually know better than I do. And that's been from coding and cursor to, we could talk about a whole list. But it's like, that's my biggest fear, is that I'm no longer relevant. And then at some point, the question is AI the answer? And while it does make it more efficient and maybe more scalable, I also like the manual first experiment all the time. Because sometimes you might get like the real spark, and right with that first manual experiment, and then that guides. You're like, okay, well now let's make it more efficient, whether it's automation, AI, or whatever it may be. But that's what's driving everything, I think.
Does anyone else have thoughts on how to not be relevant, how to stay relevant? Because I think that's something that, I mean, I'm a CEO of a small company, and I always wonder, and I think this feels like a fear for everyone in the market. How do you stay relevant, and does what you do actually matter today?
I have thoughts.
Yeah, this
Deep
was not a
thoughts.
prepared
you relevant?
question, but I think we have to take in this direction.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of tapping into what we have to do as leaders right now from a change management standpoint, because I feel like that's the biggest part. And so 6 months ago or 7 months ago, I was like, how do I make sure my team's relevant? How do I make sure they're efficient? How do I make sure that the executive team thinks I'm doing right by our investment and the size of our team? And what am I doing to show that we're on the forefront of it? And so I did a couple things with the team that, one, I think is something that I think worked out really well. But I made it clear that, one, we have annual review cycles, and it's 1 through 5. So you cannot get a 5 unless you're using AI in your job. So just trying to set the expectation that everyone has to use it. And then all of my leads, anyone who manages more than 2 people, so 2 or more people, I gave them 3 months, and I set a date, and it was a 4-hour meeting, and each of them had to get up and go through their org charts and talk about the use cases, what technology they're using, what each person's using, and that sort of set the pace, and I was wowed. It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Each of these leaders came in. I had no idea. We have 120 different use cases. And you think at first it's like, oh, they're using it for content. Copy AI, Notebook LM. I would say that's just table stakes. Of course they're doing that. But they're doing so many other cool things. our events team has a ton of contracts. So what happens? Every contract comes in, legal goes through the same changes basically. So they fed all those changes into an app, and now when the contracts come in, the app automatically flags, runs through, gives the language, gives it back, and when it gets to a place where they think legal will approve, they send it to legal, and now our contracts are moving much faster. Every time
They built that, the event team?
The team actually they've built a agentic flow to create ABM pages that took us 2 to 3 weeks. The team showed me how they were actually building these in 30 minutes, and it does agentic work. It hooks into the CMS, it hooks into our customer database, into Salesforce, all these different apps. They built an MCP layer on AWS that hooks into it. And they pick the account, and it actually, the agentic part is it pulls all this together, decides what to build, builds the page. And then the team goes through and verifies these are the right case studies, these are the right things. So I was in awe of what the team did when I just said, hey, this is going to happen in 3 months, and this is an expectation. And then, in fairness, we have a pretty technical team. And so we also spent times, every other week teaching them how to do different things and different skills, and we have a power hour, and they're learning. But it's cool. We built a profound equivalent within the team. So every day we run 300 prompts through, it's called Lighthouse. It's a Streamlit app that sits on top of Databricks. And it runs these prompts through, and it tells us across Perplexity, Gemini, and all these others how we do from a ranking standpoint, and then the citations and what we need to go address, and then we go build the geo guides and different things like that. So
Who's
I'm
leading
so
the charge?
curious.
Yeah, like who? Like,
Tell us more.
sounds
Can I use it?
It does sound more technical, I think, than average. So there's probably somebody or a few people who are pretty talented that are doing this. What do they look like profile-wise?
I would say we call it market intelligence, but they're our data scientists, they're our marketing ops team, they're on the tech side. But yeah, I mean, there are developers that code the website, and we have a web store. So there are developers that do the web store as well. And then, I mean, everyone can build it. My EA, this is a ridiculous use case, but when I travel, I like to go find a Legree class or a Pilates class. So I wanted to be near the hotel. She built an app that wherever the location is, she puts in the requirements, and it comes back. We use Navan, and it says, she gives me 3 options. It tells how far away they are from the course, the link to it, and everything, and she sends that to me because she was tired of, going and figuring that out. So all of this stuff all of us are building.
How do you make sure that, it's right? I asked ChatGPT to come up with these questions that I'm not using, but it also came up with things about you guys, and I was like looking through, and I was like, Sheila worked at OpenAI, and Scott took Dropbox public. So I was like, oh my God, it made up everything. How do you ensure that when you use it, when you or your teams use it, it's not hallucinating? Because it seems like for me it was like crazy how the type of hallucinations it
use AI to provide feedback to the AI.
I mean, I did.
Score
of
it.
course,
Yeah.
I did. I
think
did prompt
that's
it,
the
and I
review
was like,
cycle, right? That's the human in the loop. That's where we're relevant, because there is, before anything goes out, we put it through a review content alias, and directors and above, you have to have 2 or more directors approve it in order for anything to go live. And so that's the opportunity to check for accuracy.
do you guys do prompt teaching with your teams? Are there like prompt workshops?
We do a bunch of lunch and learns, so everyone's kind of learning together and sharing best practices. We also do an AI showcase, for every town hall that I do, which is once a month. So we're all learning together, and so that's been pretty cool for the team. And again, lots of use cases. On your other question about staying relevant, I feel like there's a balance, meaning, there's so much that we can do, and we're going to automate everything, and everything's going to be super efficient. But don't forget, human first, heart-centered leadership. And I think the teams still really love that, and all teams do, because you still want to be a part of a team if you're really connected. And I think that's where CMOs can play a large role in that still.
Just to add, to me, the human is the anchor of the initiative you're building. And once the human is no longer there, I just see things decay or that initiative fall apart. So whenever I want to start something, I always feel like a human should be associated with that thing. Or else, you could see 2 initiatives start blending together or stuff like that. So there's humans are super important.
Thank God.
+1 to humans.
God.
But I would just say that I think examples are inspiring, Meagen. Um, th- I've seen a lot of people build maybe the simple apps that are kind of like your EA. We've got like a custom GPT for our competitive team. I think you mentioned sales enablement. We've got a custom brand voice. But when it gets into like the more of the agentic workflow, where you're talking about like contracts coming in and getting routed to legal, that's where it gets pretty interesting. And I think that's a little bit more cutting edge. And the use cases where, small productivity gains at the individual level transfer into like division team-wide productivity. And so I don't know if anybody else has examples like that, but that's kind of where my brain keeps going. And I'm the biggest debate I have is that should I be buying those things? You're building them. And that's like the debate I'm having. Should I be building this or should I be waiting for the bespoke? Like you mentioned ABM. I think there's going to be a bunch of providers that do that
there are
ABM.
now.
And so I'm like, should I buy that or should I have a team?
But she
do
was
it?
ahead of it. That's the thing, right? And I think when I think of that, I just think I know it's kind of ridiculous to say, but we're all competing against each other in some sort of way. We're not directly
Sure.
competing, but we are in the pool of like I guess the amount of people that are eyeballs and all that stuff, and how do we stand out? And so I need arbitrage. I need competitive advantage. And so if I can't find the solution I'm looking for that's solving for that thing, I'm going to build it. And yes, there's a startup a year and a half later that's going to actually solve for that. And now I'll buy it now and I don't have to maintain it, but I probably lost my like competitive advantage. And the question is, do you want to build,
We don't build everything. I mean, we do have 20 AI native tech in our stack that we're either piloting or live with that we've bought in the last 6 months.
Yeah, of course. You're going to buy some things, right? But then there's like some cutting edge stuff. You're like, this is working for me. I want to really,
But we are looking at some of our SaaS solutions that we're going to throw out because actually it's not
I
hard to
love
build
that.
now.
I love that.
So
How
Cut
do you
SaaS. Cut SaaS.
How do you know what's working, right? Like your teams are doing so much more. How do you know what's working? And then overall, when you look at the efficiency of your team, have you seen that like number actually improve? Like has your budget gone down? Like is your like revenue efficiency higher just because you're using AI?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I don't want to hog this. So we're in AOP season right now. We're planning for next year. And of course, the ask that came in, like 40 or 50 heads, and I said we're keeping the org flat because we just did that meeting 3 weeks ago, and everyone showed me how they went from 3 weeks to 30 minutes, and every use case was saving it. And so what I threw back to the team was, if we're having all these savings, why do we need more headcount? And so I kind of wrestled with this because there probably are some teams that need more headcount, like the technical teams, because they're getting more asks. But then also the events, if we're doing more events, those are some physical things we actually need people for. And so to my leaders, I was saying, how do I know where to take and where not? By holding it flat, I'm going to see where we break and put that in there. But the other thing I learned—
How big is your team though? For context?
223. But we run a web store, website, product marketing. But yeah, it's not small. We're a 4,000 person company. But what the trick was that unlocked the efficiency, because I was listening to a webinar, and what they said was it's deadlines. So if you give your team all these tools and they become efficient, but you don't shrink your deadlines, you're not actually going to put more out there. You're putting on them to take on more work. So they either need to deliver more pipeline, more revenue with the same size team, or if they're not, they need to do things in a shorter amount of time. And it's actually on us as leaders to shorten the deadlines, because what you'll find is people will just fill it with other things and maybe not useful things to drive pipeline or revenue. And so I said to my leaders, you need to start creating shorter deadlines because we have all of these tools, which means our output should go up, which means we don't need to hire more people, or we should get more pipeline. So I feel like we certainly see with the Profound equivalent that are inbound from from the LLMs are up 145% because we're much better on citations and guides and stuff, and our conversion rates are up when it comes in from that, because certainly organic SEO traffic is flat, and many CMOs I've talked to, it's being cannibalized by GEO, and so thinking through all of these things, where there's some change in the team, I've got to compress our deadlines to drive that efficiency and output. Otherwise, I think we'll do other things.
I've seen some of that, and I would say there are clear areas where you see efficiency. We've not cashed it in for fewer heads. We're reinvesting it in areas where I think, as you were saying, the personal touch actually in some ways I think has become so much more important. This was one of your questions, Mada, I know, but community is a really big part of Figma. So we're a PLG company, meaning that there's a big bottoms-up motion in addition to kind of a tops-down enterprise motion. And driving that bottoms-up motion is a really big community team. Big, I mean, tens of people. And that is an area that we're still really investing in because I can't help but play out this story, right? Like every company is creating more content, all put in the same place. There are more LinkedIn influencers, my God, like nothing drives me more crazy, right? Creating more AI-generated content, and we're all just sitting here going crazy. And I'm like, what matters, right? Like the people, the human touch. And so we're actively investing in that. Like that really matters for Figma. So our community team, we have design advocates and developer advocates. Like those are really important to us. Our IRL experiences are really important to us because I'm like, a world of a bunch of AI slop is not a world that's that fun for me, honestly. And we kind of hear that from our customers too. And so there are clear places of efficiency, like absolutely. More content creation, faster, quicker app development. Our site is changing rapidly. We've got 1 million customized pages now, like ABM campaigns, all of that. But like what really moves the needle and what do people really care about? It's the like custom personal experience that we're giving them. And that's something that I'm always going to invest in because it's at the end of the day, like the connection that we have with our customers, and I think continues to stand out as like the other automation and like content creation, et cetera, accelerate. I think it's going to have less meaning. And so I want to make sure that we've got some kind of personal connection.
I love that. Well, thank you all for coming to this event. This is definitely in a way
use this event as an example, I guess.
Yeah.
Like how much of it was used, how much AI did you use to get this event together? I mean, you obviously got 5 of these people, incredible people. No, I want to include myself, 4 of these people.
I tried to use AI for I did build a page with Lovable. I learned
But it
Lovable.
came from intros, right? Like, I mean, the reason
totally.
why I'm here is like, where is it? XYZ kind of invited me, and then I was like, yeah, I have to show up. I mean, if XYZ is inviting me, I have to show up. And then we showed up. They all showed up. And it's like, I didn't need AI, and I think there's an efficiency aspect potentially to now potentially scaling it, but you figured it out through a manual process. Now you can potentially think like, how do I simplify my life a little bit so I can do 100 of these? But I think like the reason why these people are going to spend 3 hours or 2 hours with us is basically because there's something special and it's very unique and it's not just trash, and that's great. Yeah.
Speaking of tools, and what is like one tool that you've discovered recently that's an AI tool that can be for personal or for work that you really love and you'd recommend to the team?
I mean, I think the product that's been most interesting that I've seen just from a pure ROI perspective is Clay. And it comes down to like build versus buy. So this was prior when I was at Brex. We built kind of an outbound SDR motion using Clay, kind of scraping intent, building the ICP, crafting outbound emails, breaking the email down into 5 different parts and making it super personalized. And I think there's going to be a bunch of companies that already exist that are going to replace that. We decided to build it with some technical resources in-house, and it did wonders. It's a super powerful play. It was just a pretty big investment for us. And to your point about getting alpha, like I think eventually like there'll be a product tomorrow that will come off the shelf and be really easy, or we're not quite there yet. And so like at Vanta, I'm like looking at this, like should I build what I built before again and make that investment, or should I wait to buy it? Because it was probably a year-long project. And so those are the things that I wrestle with, but the value there was like dollars and cents wise, like we definitely replaced the productivity of many SDRs doing that.
What everyone else, Katrina?
For me, excuse me. For me, it's really thinking about my PLG funnel because we're bimodal, developer first, primarily, and then obviously now we're in the enterprise. So I was looking at how I can improve my efficiency through the PLG funnel, and so we found a couple of use cases. So I'm using OneMind. I don't have the avatar; it's just an orb, but that's been performing really well. Yeah, because there's a lot of questions that kind of come up that have nothing to do with the product, that was going to support, for example, and they just had a question before putting a credit card in, that type of stuff. So that's been really powerful.
I mean, we have Clay and we have OneMind. I was going to say Actively is a product we're using that we just, we piloted and we saw really amazing results and we bought. So we're implementing that now.
I'm an investor in both, so I'm very happy to hear this. That's great.
Good.
Clay,
Actively or OneMind?
Actively and Clay. I like both of them. I'll explain what we're doing with Clay, and some of these people, by the way, they're ex-employees of mine. They're using it. Some of Davide over there is actually the head of growth of Clay. So he used it at Verkada, and at this point, we got to a point where we're personalizing the email better than 30 minutes of research that an SDR would have to write. And we kind of build it into 4 blocks. There's the intro, 2, I guess, areas that are Verkada specific, the pitch, the value prop, whatever, and kind of like an ending to the email. And all that is automated. Every email is unique. We have an AI then scores the actual pull of that email and tells us, does this seem kind of, is this accurate? Does it seem a little AI-ish? And we throw away a bunch of the emails that suck. And now we've inputted a bunch of information that's first party from Salesforce, from looking at Clary, I guess, recordings and transcribing them. And it just gets super good at intent. And so you're now increasing the reply rate of those emails all of a sudden, and we still have a lot more work to do, but that's essentially what, we talked about email deliverability. That's definitely the how do we get around that, because if we can get around that, that'd be amazing. But that's essentially what email deliverability is looking for, is uniqueness of the emails and then the engagement being really positive, so it can feedback that loop and allow more emails to go through. And Clay is the closest to any tool that I've found that can get close to doing that and doing it at scale. So super cool. Actively then provides us sort of information as to what is the likelihood of that lead to be revenue driven, because we kind of feed it a bunch of that information back. So together, it's kind of like an incredible lift that we're seeing, which is super cool. So big fan of both.
I've never heard almost everyone give the exact same answer to that question. I was going to say Clay, but now I learned all these new use cases, so I need to go write them down after this. But we're actually, and you said you're the head of growth at Clay? I might talk to you after that.
Davide,
yeah. Okay.
over there.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
But we found a huge lift in just our ability to basically drive contacts from just the better intelligence that we got. So also a huge fan, but I feel like we're not getting the most out of it now. So
nice. Okay, so moving from tools to humans. If you were to hire your next head of marketing, it could be, let's say you were to hire a replacement for you for the next 5 years. What do you think that person, what would you look for in that person? Scott is smiling a lot.
I mean,
Go for it.
sure. I don't think there's a bunch of macro traits that don't change, right? So intelligent, smart, driven, ambitious, growth mindset, things I'm sure everybody in this room has.
Are you describing yourself?
No. I think you kind of have to have those things to survive at the elite levels. And let's face it, to be in marketing jobs in Silicon Valley, everybody in this room is probably very impressive in their own right, I'm sure. I think the difference is probably a little bit of grit and resilience. I think the pace just keeps changing. And I remember going through COVID and being leading through change and being man, this is different. This is hard. Everything's breaking. And I feel like we're entering an era where that's just going to be repeat. And it's every day there's a new company, there's a new use case. It's and you're should I buy this? Should I build this? Oh shit, what are they doing? Oh, I'm not using Clay well enough. It used to be like I got it figured out. I'm gonna coast for a little bit. I've got like my playbook here, my playbook there. Like I'm driving like with like only a couple fingers on the wheel, and now it's like I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I think it's like kind of white knuckle, let's go all the time. And so if you don't have that in your DNA, you're not gonna last.
I think just to build on that, this is a conversation I had with Dylan, who's our co-founder and CEO, last week, which was, so we've been focused on marketing and growth, and the support team is all kind of one team at Figma. And so we've been focused on kind of building a machine because you want to have kind of reliable sources of growth as you scale. And one question Dylan asked me was, but do you have enough disruptive energy on the team? Like, do you have enough people pushing the envelope? Do you have the disruptive energy? And I had to think about that for a second, because that historically hasn't been the thing that I have looked for. I want someone who's going to be strategic and think about the next, thing we need to do and be able to operationalize and move fast and get shit done. But it's like disruptive energy is like a really interesting idea, and one that you probably need as you get into this next phase, because it's exactly as you said, right? Like people who are willing to kind of blow the model up because there's a new playbook.
And are excited about that.
Exactly. Yeah, actively seek that. And so that was a really good push. So it's something I've been thinking a lot about, and probably what you would need in this next phase.
What they said is absolutely true. I think resilience, emotional balance, super important. Left side and right side brain for marketing, at least. Like you got to have both. The ability to be really good at, hacking a new solution, data driven, but also understands the emotional connection that you need to build in the, I guess, a mastery of the whatever language or whatever you're trying to like convey. And then it all comes down to you can't scale yourself. So it's gonna have to be you are inspiring the next generation of people who are smarter, better than you at everything to come work for you, which is hard. Because they can, if they're truly incredible, they can find a job anywhere. And so like, if you can do that, then as a head of marketing, like that is the number one job.
How do you do that? How do you personally do that?
I have to tailor it to every person. I have to like literally tailor it. It just depends on what it is that, what's the vision for what they're going to build? Why do they matter as an individual? What is it that they're going to get out of it? Am I the type of person they can learn from? Or is it, and then retaining them is the hardest second thing to do. Like if you can get, nowadays 3 years, 4 years from a person, you're super happy. Like, so it's super hard to do that. But if you're really lucky, you could also, I know Meagen's done this, like take those incredible people from company to company long term. Like, and so I think that shows a lot about what type of leader she is, for sure.
Thank you.
I think your point about personalization is spot on too. I think no two people are motivated the same way, and I wish it was easier, but everybody has a slightly different thing that kind of gets them going, and we have to be thoughtful enough to know how to tap into that and inspire them.
I think it's even harder as a CMO because the type of people on your team are not the same. Like at the head of sales, people are, versus the CMO, you have events people and creative people, and it's just so much harder, I think.
Very diverse.
Yeah, and I think Samsara does this too, but we hire people who aren't marketers a lot of times. Like they come from other industries, and we're trying to get them to come to marketing because that is an alpha potentially. It's like, hey, you have this skill that marketing never would have, but you're so good at it, whether it's like sometimes Wall Street, consulting, so forth. And so then I have to tell them like, marketing isn't Mad Men advertising, and try to convince them like that.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And so there's that part of hiring that I think it's actually getting a little easier now because they've come into the the industry now. There's more of them coming from different companies, but when I first started, it was impossible. So really hard.
One of the things that happen, like I often think about like the size of the marketing team, and so like I've run everything from a one-person marketing team up, to, gosh, thousands. But there's like these stages where like you get 5 people, and you're like, now I'm kind of dangerous because I've got like somebody on like an events person and a brand person and a product marketer, right? And you're like, okay, now I'm cruising. And then you get kind of like to 20, and like, oh, I've got actually like teams, and now I'm really dangerous. And then you get to the stage where you're like, I don't know, you cross like 75 to 100, I think, where you start to have some flexible people. You're bringing in more technical people, and it's like that extra technical person that has a little bit of bandwidth. If they have more curiosity, like all of a sudden, like boom, they have this like breakthrough, and the next thing you know, they're teaching event people how to build legal apps. Like that's awesome. And I'm like at that stage of Vanta's probably about 70 people, and I feel like we're right on that cusp of like we're doing AOP right now too. And any new head that I hire needs to be somebody like that kind of breaks through and has like a little capacity to like force us to be a disruptor and think different. But it does depend on your size a little bit about whether you've got that capacity, or you get lucky where you've got people that just figure it out and find a way.
Yeah, I will say the first person I've hired at every company, the last 8 companies, is a technical person. And we've worked together for 17 years now. And his name's Ryan. And he's the one, he's a builder and technical and gets right in there. Even Navan, it was 10 people, and I hired him first. And then Lacework was
best hire
like
I've ever made. Is
50.
the same thing.
Yeah.
How do you convince them not to become a CMO one day, or some other type of, head of engineering or something?
Well, I mean, I think he has to be learning and growing in his career. And so when we first worked together, he came in as a web developer, and all the way up to an SVP as a team of 50 or 60 now, right? And he's done ops, and he's done data scientist. He did growth at Trip Actions. He's done partner marketing. And so I think if people aren't growing in their career and learning and feel, building, and, he's loved by the company, every company he goes to. So, yeah, I feel fortunate. Yes.
I think for my point of view, probably someone who's really comfortable being a change agent. Because when I started my career, 2 decades ago, we were talking about digital transformation, and these days I'm like, sometimes I still sell to customers that are digitally transforming. So I think about the next era in AI transformation. That's going to go on for a long time. Yes, things are moving fast, and certainly way fast in the Valley, but someone who views themselves as a change agent, who loves transformation and can really do that well for companies is important in a CMO, I think.
Awesome. We have time for just a couple of questions from the audience. Who has a question? Speak loudly.
That's a great question. So we do a lot on just like the vision stuff. Oh, gosh, I'm not going to paraphrase it correctly.
How do you adapt when your rate of growth is very different than your customer's rate of growth?
Yeah, and it's around AI adoption, right? Like we're building products that are very AI forward, and a lot of our enterprise customers, depending on where they are, right, on their journey, it may seem like a miss, correct? Okay. So for us, we tell 2 stories. I know that sounds maybe contrary, right? There's the AI vision, what we're doing there, but we will meet you at where you're at. So you have to have a certain set of products, value, everything to meet the customers where they're at, so that they can kind of grow with you on their AI journey. That's how I think about it.
We have the exact same. I mean, because customers there's such a wide range of where they're at. For us, it's in the product building process, and like a airline is in a completely different place than Airbnb and how they build. And so we do the exact same thing. So we have kind of different stages and, decks and materials and processes based on what stage they are and where they're at. And you have to meet them where they're at, right? Because you can't just build for the cutting edge customers. That makes it makes up like 10% of the market. And so, but it's a challenge because everything's changing at once. And so, it's interesting because as AI development is so rapid. Like for me, the rate limiter is how quickly humans can change. And it's really important to keep that in mind as we're also selling. So I think it's a really apt question.
Okay, one other question.
Thank you so much. We talked about what AI tools you use. What AI tools do you wish there were that can help you improve marketing?
That's a good question.
Attribution.
I mean,
Plus
let's
one.
talk.
I know.
Plus
right?
one.
Like, upside.
Get up, Mada.
Attribution.
I know. Next time when I ask, I hope all of you like upside attribution. Okay. Well, the data.
I mean,
is
I would
very
answer the
messy.
same way I said before, which is that I think there's a lot of things that you could build right now if you have the vision, and so sometimes I'm wrestling with like you think about like what Meagen described with her ABM product, like that her team built. Like there's an opportunity for a lot of marketing automation companies to be reimagined and rebuilt right now, and I think we're about to see an explosion of them. And I know that some of the people who are building them right now, and I can't wait for them to come out, especially because I'm at that stage where I don't quite have the extra technical team to build it. And so that's probably what I'd love to see, like to take your idea through campaign launch, everything from, personalized creative to the workflows. Like you described like what you've built in Clay, Idan, the same thing we built at Brex. Like some of that should be productized very soon and be much faster. And then the world gets really interesting. I think the biggest trend we're all gonna have to contend with is, you said it, which is just slop. Like the world's gonna get real busy. We're gonna get flooded with all kinds of crap. And I have the same thought that events are gonna still reign supreme and probably go up in their importance as we all just start to tune out the volume.
Okay, so let's end with one piece of advice for as we all try to stay ahead of the curve. What's one piece of advice you have for the audience?
I'll say just stay curious. I think curiosity is like probably the most important like leading indicator to unveil a bunch of the new stuff. And as long as you're hungry, curious, like I think those are the traits that I think start everything. So that would be mine.
I never thought I would say this, but I have come back to Twitter X for like my news and what's happening, because it's just for like AI circles. It's where the conversation is happening, and so I'm not a fan. I've not been a fan in the past, but I've kind of come back just to stay on top of what's new, what's being released. Every day there's something new. It's the fastest place to find out.
Yeah, I'm back as well. It's very sad, but real.
I think the thing that's changed the most for me is like just the pace just keeps going faster and faster and faster. And we're all being forced to keep up with it. And I think everybody in this room probably feels it like, oh my gosh, I'm holding on every day. Like, the Slack deluge I'm sure we're all living in. And so to me, it's like, how do you both keep up with that? Because it's just unfortunately in the job description these days, but create room to have like calm, thoughtful, like strategic thinking time. And so how do you it's like a forcing function for all of us to like protect that time and create it so that you can think ahead, so that you can think about what the people on your team need to be motivated. If you're not really diligent about protecting that, it's really easy to let the world take it away from you. And so that's the thing that I'm constantly trying to remind myself to do. And so that would be what I'd pass on to you all, that it's a struggle for me. And so I'm sure it's a struggle for you too, but I remind myself of that all the time.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything earth-shattering. I think what we're doing, networking, throughout my career, I always try to meet people for coffee, for lunch, dinner, and across different orgs, not just marketing. So I understand the business better and create the alignment. And so, yeah, I would just say keep doing this, because that, with the learning and the dealing with change and sharing ideas and stuff.
I guess keep innovating is pretty much what everyone else has said, but be really open-minded to how you will be working in the future. One of the things that we're experimenting with is just creating pods, right? So everyone can kind of take leadership role. Maybe we can make room for a go-to-market engineer that kind of comes in and helps us wire the workflow. So we're doing a lot of experimentation. So continue to innovate. Yeah.
That's great. I actually believe cold-heartedly in that model, because the centralized org structure just doesn't move fast enough for the like experiment iteration.
Yeah.
I found that like org structure, CMO talk, that org structure is like super important. So like the embedded engineer or PM, I don't know however you want to think about it, but yeah, super important.
And the teams are happier because there's more
Yeah.
opportunity
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be creative and problem solve.
Okay, so before we thank our panel, a few logistics. We're going to have a short break. Food is going to be outside, and then we are going to move into roundtables. And the number we have some incredible moderators, so we're going to put them on the screen, and you can pick the topic and the moderator that makes most sense. And some are going to be outside, some are going to be inside. Grab a chair if there's not enough room at the round table you're joining. And then we're going to call out around 7:30 when they end, but we have the space until 9. If you want to stay extra, there's going to be drinks and food. What else? Speaking of marketers doing something fun, my co-founder Dan built an app that's a marketing game. And right now I'm on top, which is very weird. So please try to be like, it feels weird. You can do better than me. And with that, just join me in thanking this incredible
Thank
panel.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And have fun the rest of the night.